each character was dealing with this problem in a different way, and how even the characters inside the school that totally believed in the school's message also were struck. Some of them still fell on the like, well, this is good, but hopefully they'll graduate and get married and have kids, and then others were like, it would be wrong for them to graduate and get married and have kids. And it's like, well, both of you are just still telling people how to live their lives, like, and how they're dealing with their own guilt of like working at the college and teaching the women, because they're bucking what they were raised with too. And that's where I think like so much of it holds up now, is we're all kind of doing that, right? We're all kind of like, well, this is how I was raised. I'm choosing to do things differently, but I still feel that pull, not just like, if your parents are still around or your family's still around and how much you interact with them, but even like, my wife and I grew up very conservative Christian, and my wife's like, it's my mother tongue. Like when I hear it, it still feels good and natural, even though like we're not in it anymore. And I can't imagine like that pressure to just like pick the first guy that has a decent job and start popping out babies. And yeah,
you can see, we're adults. We've been around for a long time. You can look at the past and see why a world in which people fell into these roles was better for some people. So you can see why, for example, Lord Peter Wimsey should want it to continue that way, because in many ways that's, if he can keep that and have that, then things continue to be the same, and you can see that pressure. And I feel like in our world today, there are things that are similar. We can both absolutely 100% not care if people have children who are not married, which, when we were really young, that was a fairly big deal, and then a generation ago was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And at the same time, especially as parents, you can see how much easier it is to raise children if you have two people to raise them. And even then, it's very difficult. So, like, both of those things are true. There is absolutely no moral reason why people need to be in a partnership in order to have a child. And yet, it is easier and possibly, gives the child a more opportunity to have a life that they can rely on if there are two people in their life. And, then there's people, it just, like so many things can be true at once, right?
Well, one of my therapists, he told me this thing a long time ago. He goes, a mark of emotional and mental health is that you can hold two things to be true that can't both be true at the same time. And whenever these conversations come up, my wife and I dealt with this literally yesterday, because there's this woman here in our neighborhood who we think has mental illness, and she has this giant ass dog she can't control. And he got off the leash. He ran at my pug. He put my pug's neck in his mouth, and I like lost my shit on the dog and then the owner, because a few years ago the dog chased my kid. And so I start like screaming at this woman and like telling her like all the things. And later my wife's like, you just lost your shit at a mentally ill person, and I'm like, yeah, but da-da-da. She goes, oh, I know, it's true. She shouldn't have the dog. If you can't control a dog, you shouldn't have it, blah, blah, blah. Also, she's mentally ill and is not hearing what you're saying, which is what makes me more and more angry, and so it's like, and so we kept having to come back to like, both of these things are true. How do we navigate this, And I think that's, which is what makes a great book, is it's like, you can't have just a clear, like, well, this is right and that's wrong answer.
Right.
And it's like, as the villain's reading them the riot act at the end, you're like, all right, about 80% of what she said, I agree with, like,